What is up, guys?
So Revenge of the Dreamers 3 is a collaborative album that was dropped in July 2019 by J. Cole and his Dreamville label, which features artists from around the label such as Jid, Ari Lennox, Bars, Cos, Earth Gang, all those guys. As well as from the Dreamville artists, they put in features throughout this album from artists from around the hip hop and R&B landscape. So yeah, this is a pretty massive album. This came to birth from J. Cole one day in January, having the inspiration to get all these artists together in the same place for about 10 days and just working on this collaborative album. And within these 10 days, a whole bunch of producers and artists came in, and from within those 10 days of grinding, they managed to make around about 142 songs, and from those 142 songs they picked the 18 best tracks, and those tracks got put into the album, and now we have Revenge of the Dreamers 3. And not only that, but they also made a short documentary on what it was like within those 10 days of being in the studios with everyone and what went down. So yeah, this album was a pretty big mission. So being a massive album that has been hyped up since about January, of course this was going to be on my radar, especially from the Middle Child single, which J. Cole released earlier this year, which I did a reaction video on. You already know, on that video I was losing my shit. Link in the description, go check it out. But yeah, I listened to the album in my first reaction vid, which I think might be blocked because of some copyright issues. But now I've had time to kind of soak in this whole album, listen to it multiple times, know the tracks that I like. And yeah, I can confidently say that this album I really enjoyed. I really liked this album. Makeup of the album. So first of all, what I really liked about this album was how, with it being such a big project of so many variables and artists to take into account all at the same time, they somehow managed to make this whole album sound organized and clean. So all of these different styles, all these different tracks, all these different artists, they somehow organized it all, and yeah, it all just kept sounding like it was not sluggish, not anything, and there wasn't a time on the album where I kind of felt like I was getting lost or anything sounded misplaced. So I managed to enjoy the whole run through of the album without feeling like sluggish or out of place within the whole listening of this album. And I give them big props for that, because that is actually quite hard to do on a collaborative album. And that's because collaborative albums can easily just go all over the place if nobody's on the same page. And that's why I kind of believe it was quite necessary for them to for J. Cole to set up this whole 10-day recording session, because it gets everyone in the same place and everyone's just on kind of knowing what's happening and what's going on within this whole makeup of the album. The documentary they made, I highly recommend if you want to know more of a backstory behind this album. I'll go check out the documentary. I'll put the link in the description below, because it kind of makes the whole listening experience kind of a lot more interesting, and yeah, what goes down in there is actually quite cool, the competitiveness and everything. Another thing that really stood out was the individual performances on this album. This is mainly from the Dreamville artists themselves. Some of my favorite artists that did some of the best performances were Ari Lennox, whose voice I didn't actually know about Ari really before coming into this album, but her singing, her melodies all over the track she was on was kind of more like a breath of fresh air within all this hip hop. I also really enjoyed Jid on this album. His flows and everything was on full display here as usual, but he also managed to put in some catchy hooks, and I don't really think he's done that before really, but he's really I feel like that kind of on this album put him as kind of stretched him out a little bit more in how he's going to be able to write his tracks and moving forward. And yeah, he was just a bit of a highlight on whatever track he was on, especially on the track Ladies, Ladies, Ladies with T.I. he was really nice on there, and especially on Down Bad with their hook. And I really loved Earth Gang on this album. They were like, it felt like Earth Gang, whatever track they had the most highlights, the most memorable moments coming out of it. Like that song Swivel, that's actually coming up in a new album, like coming out soon. It was quite interesting having their own song on there, and it was they really ran that track, kept it interesting, and I really got to know what they're all about more on this album. Especially on also the final track, Sacrifices, they managed to do something really interesting with their voice on there, and it brought in a more emotional side. So yeah, it was really memorable what they did on this album, and I really enjoyed it. The features on this album that were from outside of the Dreamville label, they were all very decent. They did a good job on the tracks they were on, and brought something new, brought their own thing to the table on each track. Some of my favorite features on this album were from DaBaby on Under the Sun. He was awesome. And also Ty Dolla $ign on Got Me. Him and Ari Lennox together were such a great combo. They were nice listening to together. I really hope that they kind of make another song together on their own. Like, that would be awesome. But it was kind of good that these guest performances were kind of more low-key and didn't like steal the show really, because this is a Dreamville album. And it meant that these Dreamville artists that were all over this album consistently were getting more of the shine, and it really just backed up, and it was really just nice features having on an album that kept things fresh and moving. And yeah, I really enjoyed the use of guest appearances on here. And of course, the one and only J. Cole. He was awesome on this album, and I give him big props for getting this all together. He was basically the backbone of this album. Every single track he was on, he gave 100. He sounded like he gave 100%. He had just as many memorable moments on here as Earth Gang or anybody else. Like, he is such a talented person, and I give him big props, because it shows just how much of a mentor he is to everyone in this label, and for an influence for everyone outside who came in to help on this. Like, the dude's fucking talented. Like, I really give him that. The sound of the album. So the album sound is really just trap, jazzy, hip hop, with a bit of R&B in the mix here and there. That's basically the whole sound of the whole album. The album sounds really clean. All the beats are well put together and really crisp. All the producers did an awesome job on the tracks they were doing, and really put a lot of effort into what they were doing. And somehow they managed to get all the artists to get these beats and make it sound complementary to the people on it that were performing. And there was just a really great use of sampling throughout this album. Like, my highlights is probably Under the Sun, and they got that really nice sample at the start, and then managed to switch it up, and especially on like things like Down Bad. And yeah, it was just great sampling all around. They managed to keep everything unique and different in their own way. So there wasn't really a fault at all with the production on this album. I didn't think there was anything wrong. And yeah, it was consistently good with the production side throughout. My personal critiques on this album though. So from my personal opinion, with any collaborative album, it's always like that, as big as this is, it's always really hard to get like a consistent like concept going throughout, or like a theme. And that's why there's kind of like such a big difference between like a singular artist making a whole album for themselves, and having just about like dozens of artists on a collaborative album doing one album all together. Like, there's always going to be a difference with the way it's going to be with, like, conceptually. And unless in a collaborative album, conceptually that was what they were going for, like they were aiming for from the start, then yeah, it's just really quite hard to have a good conceptual album. So I personally, at the end of this album, enjoyed coming back to it because of certain songs that I really like, and I really enjoyed the whole album through. Like, there wasn't really any bad songs at all, and there was a lot of favorites on there. But in my opinion, my personal opinion, for any album like that's good like that to get pushed over the edge, it needs something that kind of emotionally impacts myself personally. And while there are a lot of emotional parts coming into the throughout the album, I don't personally feel like those really impacted me personally. And when saying this, this is strictly this part my opinion, because this type of album can affect people in different ways. People can come out of it feeling different things depending on their mood, their situation, whatever. And for me personally, I didn't get anything impacting out of it, really. So yeah, but it was really enjoyable listen. I really enjoyed listening to this album. But overall, however, in saying this all, at the end of the day, this is a collaborative album. You can tell everyone involved was having a good time, and we're all wanting this to really work, really putting in a lot of effort behind what they were doing, producers, artists, everything. And it really came up in the end as an enjoyable album to listen to for the artists who made it, and also the listeners who were listening to it. And I really think they succeeded heavily on that. That is absolutely incredible what they managed to do with the amount of people that were on this album involved. And J. Cole did an awesome job getting everyone together on this, and I'm actually blown away with how well he did it. So big ups to him. And throughout this whole album, lots of great performances, a lot of highlights, a lot of memorable moments that you can come back and have enough. When you're listening to this album in years' time, you can really still enjoy how there's the artists managed to do their own things, and there's so many different moments for everyone. And this is why I personally believe Revenge of the Dreamers 3 is going to be kind of the mark in a shift in how collaborative, massive collaborative albums are going to be made in the future with whoever is on it, and how it's going to be improved upon and how it's made. And most of all, Dreamville did an awesome job setting themselves up as a label with all these unique artists and having them being put in the spotlight now and showing off their talents, and now they can progress their careers forward with even better music and yeah, showing off everything. I'm quite excited for whatever these artists put out in the future. I'm really excited to see. So overall, I am feeling a really strong 8 on this album. It's a very solid album, and I personally enjoyed it a lot. I highly recommend you check this album out. So what do you think of this album? Leave it in the comments below if you want to give your opinion. I love hearing people's opinions, honestly. And leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want some more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day and peace.